Hello and welcome to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. Hello and welcome to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We're at the SNEC Conference in Shanghai, the world's largest solar and energy storage conference. And my friend Thomas from the Clean Tech Business Club introduced me to Dr. Stefan Kaufmann. So welcome to the show, Dr. Stefan Kaufmann.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
And Thomas spoke very highly of you. And let us know, it's better if you tell me what you do.
So at the moment, I'm a consultant for hydrogen economy. So I'm working globally. Before I was a member of the German Parliament for 14 years, responsible for innovation and technology policy, research policies. Then I was announced as a hydrogen commissioner of the federal German government when we launched our hydrogen strategy in 2020, and I served as a commissioner for 2 years, but then I decided to leave the politics and change to the private sector as a consultant.
That's awesome. When I was over there in Germany too, I went to one of Thomas's Clean Tech Business Club dinners, and I met another person that you must know, Hans-Josef Fell.
Yes, I know him. He's a little bit older than me. He's one of the pioneers of the German solar industry and solar politics, a member of the Green Party, so a member of the conservative, now governing party. We all have the same goals and the same ideas. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to record a podcast with him coming up. I think it's in a couple of weeks. And Thomas has a lot of good connections in his Clean Tech Business Club. So I encourage everybody to join the Clean Tech Business Club and get to know Thomas. He's very good at marketing. I see him at all the big solar shows around the world. He just seems to be everywhere.
Yeah, we started small, and I'm the co-head of the hydrogen sector of this Clean Tech Business Club. And now it's really increased to a global network of visionaries, and in the clean tech sector, not only hydrogen, it's also about renewable energy, about water. We need clean water for electrolyzers, for example. So that is very interesting, and a lot of really interesting people are members in this club. And so we meet all over the world on conferences, and that's quite interesting to work together on the same goals. And at the end, we have to work together in these industries, different industries, but also all over the world to bring our ideas in realization.
Yeah, I think I've probably seen Thomas on half the continents in the world. And that's pretty awesome. So maybe what you could do is tell us about the CBC, the Clean Tech Business Club, and the importance of together we are stronger in the hydrogen industry and collaboration between renewables and hydrogen.
That's what I said before. So the idea is really to work together, visionary people coming out of different industries from different countries, and to work together on a clean tech and a green future of our planet. So we have to work together, and it's all about also personal contacts. You have to meet each other. So that's why we go to these conferences and not only do video calls, but meet each other in person to build trust and then also to start business together. Thomas started, for example, with the colleagues on Northern Africa, business in Morocco now, building first pilot projects, hotels, schools with smaller hydrogen plants, for example. So that is something to show that it is working, to show that we can reach our goals when we work together. And that's why I'm really happy to be part of this club, and also as a co-head of the hydrogen sector, working together with colleagues from all over the world to bring also the hydrogen sector. Yeah.
I know hydrogen, it's about the smallest thing there is, at least on the periodic table of the elements. It's pretty much just a lonely proton there. The first thing, I guess they say, that was in the whole universe as far as elements are concerned. And so it's very important. It could be explosive, especially when you combine it with oxygen. And tell us what happens when you do combine hydrogen with oxygen.
Yeah, then we have some explosions. But we did a lot in the last decades for security things. So we now know how to handle hydrogen in cars. We have a series of racing cars, for example, where the driver is sitting in between of two hydrogen torpedoes.
Oh, so really?
The safety issues are not that difficult anymore. So we have a lot of engineering solutions now to use hydrogen in mobility sector, but also in industries. But what is really important is we are here on a solar fair and representing the solar industry. So we need electricity for a green future, a lot of electricity. We can do a lot with electricity, for heating pumps, for example, for heating system in houses. We can use for sure electricity in mobility sector for cars, for heavy trucks. But at the end, we have a lot of applications, especially in industry, where we need a molecule, where we need a gas. So to replace fossil natural gas by hydrogen. So that's why we're talking in steel industry. We can use hydrogen to replace fossil gas, natural gas in the production of green steel, for example. So that is the point. So we need a lot of electricity, but we also need a green molecule. And there hydrogen is the only solution for the moment. And that's why we're talking about this growing hydrogen industry. It's cheap. It's not cheap. It's costly. It needs a lot of new infrastructure. So that's why it takes a little bit more time than some people expected the last years. But anyway, there's at the end, if you really talk about net zero in 2045 or 2050, there's no alternative to a green molecule and to green hydrogen.
Yeah, and there's so many things that you can do with hydrogen. You can put it in a fuel cell. You take hydrogen and oxygen, you turn it into water and electricity. You can burn hydrogen, which actually also makes water vapor. And then you can take hydrogen, you could turn it into ammonia, which could be used as a fuel. You can turn it into jet fuel. What's your favorite use of hydrogen?
Yeah, that's very difficult. So we have some quotas now for synthetic aviation fuels in the aviation sector. So it's also based on hydrogen. So which really helps to decarbonize the aviation sector. We talk now about quotas for shipping fuels, for example, to use green ammonia or green methanol for shipping instead of LNG. So that is something I like. For sure, at the end, we need hydrogen as a gas, especially in industrial solutions like I talked about steel industry. We can use it for heating houses. In Germany, we have around 14 million houses heated by gas, by natural gas pipelines, so we can use it instead of hydrogen, for example. I think we should start in the industrial sector because there we have the biggest gain in reducing emissions, but then also use it when we increase the global production of hydrogen. We can use it also for other industries. So at the moment, talking about ammonia is interesting because 60% of ammonia is hydrogen, and we can use it or have to use it in the fertilizer industry, but we can also use it, that's what is interesting in ammonia, we can use it to bring the green energy from Africa, from South America, from Australia to Europe, because we can't ship hydrogen as a gas. We can't ship it liquid. It's difficult at the moment, but we can ship the hydrogen, green hydrogen as green ammonia to all over the world. And that's what we are doing right now. So we ship it as ammonia to Europe, but then we have to crack it out, the cracker, bring the hydrogen out and bring it in a pipeline. And as far as we don't have this infrastructure, we are built on it, we can use ammonia as ammonia for shipping fuels especially, but also for fertilizer industry. The problem is only the price. So it's much higher than the gray ammonia we use now for fertilizers. And these industries are not willing or not able to pay the higher prices right now. So at the end, it's all about also public funding for the first projects. But we should start now, not only with smaller projects, you should really start with the global PDX industry.
So that's really interesting. You make hydrogen with an electrolyzer, with electricity, and then you turn it into ammonia so you can ship it over long distances, right. And then you turn it back into hydrogen again.
Exactly, and it sounds a little bit funny, and for sure you have efficiency loss. People talk, okay, use it directly, the electricity, you can much, for sure, you have loss in efficiency of the usually green energy. But if you talk about countries like Mauritania, Brazil or Australia, you have such abundance of green energy, solar industry, and the prices are fell down. So it's not really the problem of the cost of green energy. It's a problem in Europe. So we can't produce green energy that cheap. Like we can do it all over the world somewhere. That's why Australian guys invented the idea of shipping the sunshine. Shipping the sunshine via ammonia to Europe. But it's the only chance. If you talk about 70 or 80% of green hydrogen or energy import into Europe, from all over the world, we need a carrier. And ammonia is a carrier with all the losses and some costs for sure. But in the end, it's the only option. As long as we're not able to produce really green hydrogen in Spain or Portugal or the northern countries like Sweden, we have options there with offshore wind, with solar, but we need really a lot of hydrogen. For example, for the steel industry in Germany, the biggest steel plant in Europe is ThyssenKrupp. They need for the quarter of the steel production, they need 150,000 tons of hydrogen a year as a gas to reduce the emissions for 20 to 25%. So that means 1.5 gigawatt of electrolyzer capacity only for this one steel plant. So to show, and that is something we can't do in Germany. We can maybe do it in Spain or in Sweden. And that's why we talk about import. And that's why we have to talk right now about ammonia, as long as we don't have the hydrogen pipelines from Spain, from the North Sea down to Central Europe. So we are also talking about it, working on that in Europe, the companies together and countries together to build a pipeline from southern Spain, maybe from Morocco to Spain, to France, to Germany. But that needs some time. That will need maybe another 5 to 10 years. And until this is not built, we have to start with shipping ammonia.
We interrupt you for a very important announcement. Shaun White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast has been brought to you by Shaun White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. That's right, Shaun White is sponsoring his own podcast, and he wants to remind you to go check out some of his classes. You can go to SolarSEAN, that's Solar, SEAN.com, and then click on the links to check out his classes. You can check out his heat spring classes, and you can also hire him to teach classes for you, like at your company, something like that. Now back to the show. Great. One thing that I've always wondered about hydrogen is one way of storing it is compressing it, and it takes energy to compress the hydrogen. And then there's another technology called compressed air energy storage. Did they ever take the energy that's used to compress the hydrogen, and then when they're decompressing it, use that as stored energy also?
Something we should also think about, technology. So if we have enough electricity, cheap green electricity, that is not, at the end, it's not a showstopper.
And then another application I thought was very interesting is when you transport electricity on wires, you have voltage drop. And if you transport hydrogen in a pipeline that's not leaking, at least, then you don't have to worry about things like voltage drop.
Exactly. And as we know, you can transport 10 times more energy with a hydrogen pipeline than with the electricity grid. So that's what makes it really interesting to transport hydrogen in a pipeline from Spain, from Northern Africa. Let me say for a distance up to 2,000-3,000 kilometers, a pipeline is more interesting. But for shipping hydrogen from Australia and so on, you can't use a pipeline for sure. That's why you have to use ammonia, maybe liquid hydrogen in maybe 5 to 10 years. We have to build the ships now. That is the advantage of ammonia. We have already the ammonia industry. They're producing at the moment 200 million tons of ammonia a year for the fertilizer industry. We have around 150 to 200 ammonia ships, but we don't have any liquid hydrogen ship at the moment. So that's something we have to build. It's very expensive because it's something new. That's why we talk about existing technologies now and existing infrastructure.
And so hydrogen being about the smallest thing that there is as far as elements are concerned, you have to worry about it being leaky if you're sending it through a pipeline. And so are there ways that people are taking natural gas pipelines and then converting them to hydrogen, and how do they do that?
Yes, so there is a lot of research worldwide on this. So in Germany, for example, we have around 500,000 kilometers of natural gas pipeline. As I told, we have 14.5 million households heated by gas. And every of these gas providers is examining the pipelines very close. So they say that they can reuse around 70 or 80% of the existing natural gas pipelines for pure hydrogen. It's not a problem to mix 10 to 20%. That's not a problem, but also to have pure hydrogen in the existing natural pipelines. You need some different compressors. Yeah, that is something you have to invest. But normally you can use a lot of existing natural gas pipelines in the future for hydrogen. Yeah, but for sure you have to you have to test it. You have to look for the leakages. So for security reasons. But there's a lot of research going on, and so we have a lot of experience now in that point.
Yeah, it's pretty neat how they can take the energy and turn it into so many different forms. So we have electrical energy we're talking about most of the time. Then there's chemical energy, and we can take that electrical, turn it into chemical with the hydrogen, put it through fuel cells, mix it with nitrogen from the atmosphere to make ammonia. And they can also make hydrocarbons. And so natural gas is mostly methane. And you can make, I guess, even jet fuel, right? I've heard that you can make jet fuel out of hydrogen.
Exactly what I said, synthetic aviation fuels, so jet fuel, also shipping fuel as green methanol, for example. It's all based on hydrogen. You need a CO2 source. That is a little bit of a problem because if it's a green synthetic aviation fuel, it has to be in a biogene CO2. You can maybe capture CO2 from industrial plants, for example, and to make it really green, it has to be biogene CO2 from biogas plants, for example. So that is something which is not, it could be a little bit difficult if you produce really these huge amount of synthetic aviation fuels or synthetic fuels for shipping. Also green methanol is based on CO2. So that is something why ammonia could be a little bit easier because it's easier to produce at the moment huge amounts of ammonia green than huge amounts of green methanol, as far as you don't have these biogenic CO2 sources.
Yeah. And it's pretty easy to find nitrogen. It's half of the stuff in your lungs. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And something I want to say that's really the interesting thing is to combine the electricity world to the molecule world and to use hydrogen as a storage. We made a lot of efforts and a lot of progress. You see it here in battery storage now. Some years ago, some expectations were lower, but we see it's working. But anyway, you can use hydrogen as a energy storage. You can also use the pipeline as a storage. So that makes it interesting to produce hydrogen and to use the green energy to store it as hydrogen for times where we don't have wind and solar.
That's interesting, using the pipeline as the storage. Yeah. Okay. And the pipeline, so what's the pipeline made out of? It's like metal? Is it some kind of polymer?
It depends. We have a lot of steel pipelines. It could be a polymer. So there are also a lot of research and innovative companies. So we will find solutions for that. So all these security issues about leakage and so on, I think it's more like discussion of the past. For sure, there are some people still that say it's maybe not so intelligent to bring the hydrogen to the fueling station to get everybody use the hydrogen to fuel the car. Okay, but as I said, I think the security topics are not so problematic in my point of view.
Great. Let's see, is there any other topics that you want to cover?
No, I think it was very interesting, and I think for you as well, and hope that we see a lot of progress in the next years. At the moment, we have a lot of global problems for sure, so a little bit of delay in PTX projects worldwide. But as I said, at the end, there's no alternative. It's a question of time. It's also a question of money for sure, but also a question of regulatory, of the political will, and maybe also to reduce funds for fossil industry and to really go into green energy future.
Great. Well, thank you so much for educating me about hydrogen, about Together We Are Stronger. And let's give a thumbs up to Thomas here with the Clean Tech Business Club. He's my favorite thumbs up guy. And you're a member of the Clean Tech Business Club, right?
Yes, a member, and as I said, co-head of the hydrogen.
And co-head of the hydrogen part of the Clean
Exactly.
Business. Yeah, there's a lot of great people in the Clean Tech Business Club. I'm friends with Ike, I'm sure Ike Weber.
Yeah, so good luck for your business and what are you doing, and see you again maybe in October here in Shanghai for the SNEC Hydrogen.
And how would we like people to find you? LinkedIn or something like that?
Yes, LinkedIn is the best. Stefan Kaufmann.
Great. Stefan Kaufmann. We'll have it in the show notes. And I'm honored to have somebody also that was a member of the German Parliament for 14 years, promoting renewable energy and hydrogen. Thank you so much, Stefan Kaufmann. And thanks for listening to Shaun White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. To learn more, go to SolarSEAN.com.